side of the runway. Now, what I think is remarkable is that that plane has stopped in a very short space. You can see the space exactly there on your screens. Less than half a mile, possibly even a quarter of a mile. The pilot doing, from the early viewing, a remarkable job really in keeping the plane almost facing down the runway and therefore minimising the damage that would have been done to the airframe of the aircraft, the wings and the bodywork of the aircraft, and therefore saving lives and preventing injuries, because that's what causes the lives to be lost.
Absolutely. Just a quick word about the activities now at Heathrow concerning, of course, all the other runways, all the other flights.
We have heard that the south runway is closed, but I'm not sure that's the case with the north runway.
It's not clear from these pictures which runway we're looking at, and I haven't had a chance to just try and have a look here. Yeah, that looks like the southern runway. So the southern runway where the incident, it looks to be happening. Crane my neck round here. It's difficult to tell. But just to say that if Heathrow, even one of Heathrow's runways are out of action, then that's going to cause severe disruption to the airport. This is an airport that relies very, very heavily, as we've said in the past on News 24, on there being two runways. Those runways being very heavily operated flights every 45 seconds or so, the disruption will be very severe.
Tom, stay with us, because I think we can just speak to another eyewitness now. I believe we've got Steve Bell on the line, who was driving along the M4. Steve, can you hear us here in the studio?
Yes, I can.
Just tell us, if you can, exactly what you saw.
Well, I was driving on the road running parallel to the runway, stopped at a set of traffic lights, and then as we pulled away, I saw this plane come to an abrupt end at the end of the runway and sort of turn about 90 degrees.
Is it clear that this plane was in difficulty as it was coming in?
Well, I couldn't actually see it come down the runway. There's like a blockade that stops you from looking up the runway on the perimeter road. But as I just passed that blockade, I saw it come to a complete halt, so I don't really know.
Now, we're seeing pictures that obviously you can't, Steve, but certainly the plane has encountered some damage to its underside. Did you hear a crash?
Well, I heard a sort of scraping noise, metal on tarmac, and saw that the right-hand side engine was damaged in some way. I couldn't see if it was fire damage or tarmac damage, but it was, yeah, I heard it sort of screech along the tarmac and stop, and then as it stopped, it kind of spun round about 90 degrees.
Now, I'm not really sure of the geography and where the M4 is as to in relation to the airfield, but was it a frightening experience for you? Did you sort of see this plane coming towards you?
Yeah, I mean, driving on that perimeter road, you see the planes come over all the time, and you know, to actually see one come to a stop under obviously emergency conditions, it's quite unusual. You don't see it every day.
Now stay with us, Steve, because we're just, for the purpose of people just joining us here on News 24, we're just talking to an eyewitness who saw a plane coming into Heathrow which landed short of the runway. You can see the pictures there of that plane where it's come to rest. It skidded across the grass. You can see the skid marks just behind it, and the emergency services have very quickly got passengers off that plane.
Let me just add, because we were talking to Tom about how this is impacting all the other flights that obviously come in and out of Heathrow. A spokesman for the air traffic control company, NATS, has said that planes were still taking off and landing at Heathrow under a single runway operation using the northern runway. Obviously, delays are expected, but one runway is clearly working. The area around that plane obviously is now not, and of course you will see that plane there for some while, so I suspect that is going to be the case for some hours. But clearly there are contingencies at Heathrow for exactly an occasion like this, and a spokesman for air traffic control saying that planes are still taking off and landing at Heathrow under a single runway, and that seems to fit in exactly what the Reuters news agency was also reporting, that although the south runway is closed, the north runway is still operating. Well, as we continue to watch these pictures and the scenes and activity around this stricken plane, let's bring in Louisa Baldini again, who's monitoring all the different strands of information coming in from so many different areas now. And Louisa, clearly the pictures tell, well, very much a lot of the story here.
It looks like it must have been a very dramatic incident indeed, and London Heathrow airport officials are now confirming and calling this an emergency landing. They say it happened at 12:42. Now, I understand that this BA Flight 38 from Beijing was due to land at London Heathrow anyway, so it's not that it made this emergency landing en route to somewhere else, but they are calling it an emergency landing, and very clear now from the pictures that it landed short of the runway. It looks very dramatic, of course. All the chutes are out. But as far as we know, there have only been 3 minor injuries, although 6 ambulances attended and 2 response cars, as well as 6 fire engines. But for now, just 3 minor injuries. And what a time for this to happen, of course, because the Prime Minister himself is at Heathrow. Gordon Brown is, as far as we know it, sitting on a plane with our political editor and other journalists and other dignitaries. He's about to fly out to China, ironically, and he's also supposed to be visiting India as well. So he may be delayed sitting on that plane on the runway for some time yet.
Well, just one postscript to that, because Will Walden, who we were talking to a little earlier, has just phoned in again, just literally in the last few seconds as you were going through that last sentence, to say that passengers on the Prime Minister's flight are now expecting to take off in the next 20 minutes. Only a moment ago I was talking about how the north runway is still operating. So given that that is the live picture there on the south runway, clearly arrangements are being made for the Prime Minister's flight to now move to the north runway, and that is expected, as I say, to take off in about 20 minutes' time.
Well, let's go back now to Steve Bell, who was on the M4 and witnessed all this happening. Steve, just for the sake of people who are just tuning in, just describe for us what you saw, what happened earlier today.
Well, I saw a BA plane